welcome to stream number 15. I cleaned up some of this stuff on the screen, so you don't have to see a lot of extra craft. And today I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to take care of, but I noticed that there are a bunch of PRs and bug reports that I can take care of, so I figure I'll just dive into that to start with, and then we'll see a little bit if I get stuck on something, or a little bit just how it behaves, how everything goes. And if you have ideas, suggestions, bring that up, and we could sidetrack into whatever. So I wanted to start with my little browser window over here, and because I got a comment on this bug. I got this 21 hours ago from Ricardo Gomez. So it's a question in a bug report that is already closed, 3537. It's a pretty long bug report, and it's about a callback that we do that can apparently create, well, in this original bug report. Well, right, look at that, it's the same guy. So yes, it is this callback is the timer function. When using the event-based libcurl API, you can get a callback for, and libcurl tells the application, we want a timer set to this many milliseconds. Tell me again when this timer has expired. And that's how you do event-based stuff in general, right? So you wait for a number of sockets and you wait for a timeout. And if any of these, if there's any action on the socket or the timer expires, you call libcurl again. So okay, so this says there's a new timer to wait for, and the documentation says if the timer it reports is 0, it means execute immediately. So, which means that most, and even the example code did encourage this in the past, they call into libcurl again from the callback. So, a recursive call into libcurl again from the callback, which is always icky, doing recursive calls into libcurl again. And in this case, it's extra icky because of reasons that I apparently created a while ago. It will find out that it still needs to be it still needs a timer, and it calls the callback again and says, "Whoa, expire in 0 milliseconds." So then it calls it again and again and again and again, and this is a nice stack trace. You can see a lovely recursive thing that just in the end ends up crash. Well, the crash is on top here, but this crash is in this guy's system, so it's some particular malloc, but it doesn't matter. The point is that it is a stack crash because it's just a recursive spinning around the 0 millisecond timeout. Well, it's both. So I didn't really fix this problem because previously, and I pretty much updated the documentation and said you should consider it as a 0 millisecond timer, so expire it immediately. So don't call libcurl back recursively. Set a timer to expire in 0 milliseconds. Basically, expire immediately, but don't do it recursively. And that is a good fix. So, I was pretty happy with that. It wasn't really a fix, it was more of a don't do this, maybe. And now he's back and pointed out, well, he points out to an analysis here in a completely different repository, of course. I mean, even in a specific commit to this project, Taran tool. I have no idea what it is. I can just click on it and learn something. Get your data in RAM. Get compute close to data. Enjoy the performance. Okay, it doesn't tell me anything, but let's ignore that. So here's the long explanation then, pretty much. Well, I can also ignore his explanation because he accurately pointed out that this problem, this issue, began happening after I landed this PR 2419. And when I read the PR 2419, it immediately came back to me and I understood exactly what he's talking about. Because, and well, this is another internal thing that is pretty obscure that I guess more or less only me keep track of. But okay, let me take this as well. If libcurl is doing name resolves with a threaded resolver, so it fires up a separate thread to do the name resolving, so the original thread doesn't know when the resolver is done, because there's no socket or anything to wait for. So it'll just poll and check, is it done, is it done, is it done? And that is very inefficient, but that's the way we do it now because of reasons. So previously we had a fixed little sleep or wait time. So wait a few milliseconds, then check it again, then wait a few milliseconds, then check it again. And that few milliseconds, that's really hard to do in an efficient way. It turned out to be a little performance problem, because if you would, for example, always wait 10 milliseconds until you wait again, then 10 milliseconds would be the fastest way to resolve a hostname, right? And 10 milliseconds is a long time if, for example, you already had the name cached, or it's okay. 10 milliseconds is too slow, but if you're on a really, really slow name server, 10 milliseconds you can spin quite a number of times. So maybe we should instead introduce, slowly incrementing the time. So, and that is what we're doing now. Now we start looping like crazy for a little while, and then we slow down the iteration and slower. But that initial one makes it loop several loops on the same millisecond, and that is what is causing this problem. So basically this fix that I made. So if it's been resolving in less than 10 milliseconds, expire the timer in milli divided by 3. Very scientifically set? No. But okay, so that means that within the first 3 milliseconds, it'll expire in 0 milliseconds. There. And that is what is causing this problem. Pretty annoying. So my immediate response before, but previously I didn't quite understand it, but now I do understand it more completely. But what is the correct fix, or is there a fix here? Ideally, there really isn't a good fix, because if we want to be able to manage sub-millisecond name resolves, which we supposedly do, right? Because if you're having a local resolver, for example, you can certainly resolve host names faster than milliseconds, right? If it's cached already, you can resolve them in, well, microseconds. So you could resolve a whole bunch of them within 0 milliseconds, well, within the same millisecond. So calling it back again in the same millisecond, it basically has to handle that. So yeah, so I'm thinking out loud here pretty much. So excuse me if I'm rambling a little bit, But the more I think about it, the more I think that the current fix, that is, do not call it again, is the right fix, because I don't know how to handle it otherwise. And since now, when they said that expire now, immediately it'll just loop as fast as it can, but it won't crash the stack. And it'll loop as fast as it can for a little while then, and then increase the timer again. Possibly this should be divided by 2 instead or something. I don't know. Possibly this should be different, but I don't think, as long as it can call it back again on the same millisecond, there's a problem. Millisecond isn't really very high resolution. So, yeah. Can you please confirm full? Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be entirely correct and a fine analysis. And for many systems, calling it back, calling libcurl back again recursively will then risk this kind of stack smash. I can't figure out a sensible or easy fix for this in another way than the way we already discussed and have documented. Possibly we should at some point even prevent. Let's skip that part. I mean, we have a lot of protections within libcurl functions, so you can't call them from within callbacks. But this particular one is an exception, and it is allowed. So maybe we shouldn't allow it. But I don't think we need to go there right now. So that was not a fix, but it was a reaction at least to a comment in a previously closed bug, 3537, so it was a little while ago. Okay, then here's the current pull requests, and we get a lot of these annoying CI failure. Oh, there were many failures. So I wanted to start by merging my URL API fix that I discussed on the stream. Was it yesterday, right? I worked on the scope ID parsing thing. I want to merge it and then work on fixing the scope ID. But okay, let's merge this, and I have some other merges I want to do. So just for complete, coveralls is clearly drunk, but because this is a lie, it's not even at 79 or before this, so it can't be a deduction with 4.9. It's really, I don't know, it's annoying, but coveralls is becoming more and more just increasingly annoying. I think at some point I'll just remove it. And and the codacy warnings there are possibly even sillier than those coveralls warnings. So this, okay, it warns that Strulen doesn't handle non-zero terminated strings. Yeah, right. Thank you for telling me about that. That's the sort of the point with Strulen, right? And yeah, and the same warning on the other Strulen. Thank you very much. Silly warning. And then there's a warning that we don't check for buffer overflow when we use memcopy. So yeah, the memcopy itself can of course not check for buffer overflows, but this warning is also stupid because, and let me get the correct branch here, named Bagder parse IPv6 scope ID. There it is. And then I want to go to the correct file. And the warning from codacy was on line 1092. Bam. So we can see that it copies hostlen -1, and hostlen is actually the length of that string. So, silly warning. Let's ignore it. So I'm going to merge this. I'm just going to make sure that it says fix is correct, it says close is correct. Not even a very obvious typo anywhere. So I'm going to merge this. Boom. Okay. I'm going to rebase it there. So that's on top of everything. And I'm going to push it. Boom. So switching to the browser, it will notice that it's closed. Sometimes it takes a while, so I'll just reload it instead. So there, bam, closed with unmerged commits. Yeah, that's because I rebased it. So I delete it here. Boom. Pull request done. And then I always forget that I have my local branch lingering around. So yeah, I could also delete my local branch there. And back to the browser, we are in this configure PR that I did. Failed everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but still. The Windows builds are fun. Why did they fail? Let's check what it says. Bum, 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 bum. Ha! Well, that was fun. Yeah, and it shows that it's completely wrong, right? Because there's no WinSSL option here. There's a win. No, sorry. Well, there's a with WinSSL. There's no with SSL. So yeah, that was a bad PR. So back to the drawing board for that. My fix just did this, right? If with SSL isn't no, because it's off, not no, I think. Okay, let's try that instead. And that is in the branch I called git checkout. Banger, it's called configure. So many branches, detect. Detect missing OpenSSL. And configure Here it is. I think it's supposed to say off. Or what is it? I can't find anything saying with SSL. That's it's opt as SSL, and it says off from the beginning. Wait a minute. If it's not no. Is it like that? Is it no? I'm gonna have to... I think maybe this is the AC arg with auto tools. So let's go and Google it. AC arg with okay. That wasn't immediately obvious. With val. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it like this. Back to the thing here. AC right. No, there's that mem copy you saw. If we switch back to the mem copy, it's actually more weird than it looks like, because in this case, where am I here? If we look at this, is the mem copy that I did here, and it copies hostlan -1, right? So it skips the last byte of the hostlan, and host in this case, when host starts with a bracket, it means that it ends with a bracket, which is a IPv6 numerical address. So if we wanna create a host numerical IPv6 with the scope ID, so it copies everything except the terminating bracket, and it adds the scope ID here and the terminating bracket in this extra smprintf. So it's a little bit of a icky thing here, but it's creating this thing that is IPv6 address %25 and the scope ID. That's what it does, this block of code here. Yeah, well, I mean, scope ID is really it's part of the host, but at the same time it's not a part of the host, because it depends on your own definition of host, I think. So host name, according to the URL specification, is probably part of it, but the reason I'm extracting it from the host name is that in curl right now we're extracting the host name, and that host name is then used for getting the host to connect to. And right now, when we're getting host name with the scope ID in it, it'll just misbehave. So my plan is to extract the scope ID from the host so that we can get the scope ID separately from the host. So sort of, yeah, the host is just a host name or an IP address, and then the scope ID is separate from that, so we can use them as two different fields. So I'm definition-wise, it's not crystal clear exactly. Yes, it's basically just luck, because you you need the scope ID, of course. Well, I shouldn't say that you need it, but in many cases you need it to connect to the right host. But if in Carl's case, it has really weak support for the scope ID, basically because I've never quite myself used it or understood it completely. So it's in a big weird state. So yes, curl supports it mostly by luck, or not at all. So when I have this fixed, we can at least extract the IP address correctly. But with my next fix that I want to do after this, I want to make sure that we also can get the scope ID, if there's a scope ID, and use that correctly. So that's a follow-up fix for this, basically. Yes. And I could get started on that. I'll just get my configure problem fixed first. I'm just gonna see move with the val. I'm just gonna make sure that we get the correct value out of this. This is just for debugging, because I get so annoyed with writing M4 and configure. That's I'm just gonna verify that it's actually say no if I don't use any option. It says yes. Why did it say? Why did it say yes? Oh no. It certainly said yes. Yeah, we can basically have the discussion in every stream whether auto tools is good or bad, or if there are actually sensible alternatives. Well, you mean if you, for example, use the URL API and you extract the hostname, would you want the scope ID to be part of the hostname then, or would you consider it separate from the hostname? Because that's actually the most relevant question, is how to do it in the public API. If you ask curl to parse a URL for you, and that URL might have a IPv6 address with a scope ID, and you ask curl to give you the hostname back, should that hostname contain the scope ID or not? Right, yeah, the URL look like that, yes, but do you consider the scope to be part of the hostname? Or is it data that is related to the hostname as part of the URL? What does it actually say in that RFC? Which RFC is that? IPv6 address scope ID RFC. Should be URI also, I think. There it is, right? 6874. Ooh, big. It calls Oh, well, it doesn't talk about host names at all, right? Because it's not a host name, it's an... Well, yes, I have, but um, I still consider the scope ID to not be part of the host name, but that might just be how I view it. So yeah, maybe I should rather view it as part of the host name, and then it should be extracted as. Um, yeah, I don't think this spec helped me at all because it doesn't. It's a literal. It just says it's included in the literal. So yeah, it's included in the IPv6 address, and maybe then. So okay then. Mm, so if okay, but can I do anything else to make it? So okay then, let's do that. So let's backtrack a little bit. Then I'll do this. I'll go here and first I'll just see if accept the variable. I'll push, see if that makes it any happier. And then I'll switch back. Okay, so let me then go back to URL API scope ID. So if I don't extract it, if I let it be part of the host name, I can do that. I just have to update a little bit. So if it is blah 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 scope ID, and then if I do that, I don't have to store it separately either, because then it's part of the host name. What do I need to do? Or I keep it separately because that's what I want to do, and I put it together when you ask for it. Decisions. That's actually probably nicer for me, because internally in curl we want them separate anyway. So I need to separate them, but I can make sure that when asking for a host name, they actually that's setting the host name. That's getting host. So maybe I should put them together when asking for it. That's what I do when I produce a URL, so I can just use the exact same code for because I wanna make the URL, the code here in the URL API be the ones that handles everything that is related to curl, no sorry, to URL parsing. And I don't want to leave the parsing of the scope ID to other parts of curl just because we want to. And really, if I leave it in the host name for users, then users would have to parse that out. And a user parsing a URL like that, no, I'm thinking, I mean, if you're as a user is using libcurl to parse the URL and then you want to connect to the hostname used in the URL, how would you do that? If you would need to parse the hostname looking for %25 and strip out the scope ID and use it. It's not a nice way. Yeah, you need a scope ID to connect, but you don't want to parse the hostname for it. So it would rather be that if you're connecting to a IPv6 address that you got from curl, you would also use the scope ID that curl also provides to you. It makes sense because otherwise you need to know how to parse the hostname for the syntax for how scope IDs are provided in URLs. And also it can be URL encoded. Yeah, I think I'd rather make sure that we provide but I want to remove it because I want to remove the need for the application to parse the string, right? The one of the primary purposes of providing a URL parser for the application is to let the application not have to know how to parse the data, how to parse the string and get the information out of the string. So if curl parses the URL for the application and provides the pieces, the application doesn't need to know at all what parts or how the parts are encoded or provided or anything. They would just ask the API for the data and it'll provide the data. If we don't extract it from the hostname, then the application needs to parse the string. Then it needs to know how to figure out a scope ID from a given IPv6 address. That is why I want to extract it. That's why I want to remove it. But I need to be able to provide it to the application too, and I don't right now. So right now it's not good. So right now we need to I need to add a way for the application to also get the scope, because if the application wants to connect to an IPv6 address, it needs to be able to ask curl for the scope as well, because otherwise it might not be able to do it. It's a scope ID, right? No, it's a zone ID actually. According to the RFC 6874, it's called a zone ID. Zone identifier. Or should it be IPv6 zone ID? Nah, too long. Zone ID. Added in 7. Let's consider this a bug fix anyway, so that I can get it into the next version. Because if it's not a bug fix, it's not going in this version. But let's consider it a bug fix, even though it actually changes the API So if we then offer the zone ID there, we can go down here. So next to the zone ID, we can extract. Maybe I should rename it so that it's called I think it makes sense, otherwise it's yes, 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 yes. No, this is not a vertical monitor. These are actually two. Oh, sorry, vertical. Yeah, no, they're just two regular monitors, actually 124-inch and 127-inch. Not that you can see that, because these are just windows collected. And so I think I need to just rerun my configure line. Otherwise stuff won't work. Right, I can show you my .emacs file. Bam. This is my .emacs. Someone asked me what kind of plugins I use for Emacs, but I don't use any plugins for Emacs, but I have 150 lines .emacs. But it's pretty basic. Sets up a bunch of key bindings that I need, a bunch of defaults, setups and stuff. And I switch off. I don't have any menus or icons or anything in Emacs. So, and I have a bunch of custom key bindings basically. Well, a bunch of modes and then I have styles like this. So what do I have? I run this curl mode common hook. So I actually, and as you can see here, I sometimes edit a libssh2 code. So I have a special match for a libssh2, and then I run enable libssh2 mode. That's just for code style. So okay, I'll compile from Emacs. What? There. There we are. Okay, so since I then provide this zone ID, and I need to I need to get used to the terminology. When I called it scope for a while, but it's not a scope, it's a zone. Test 1560. Tests lib 1560 is the one with a lot of URL API stuff. And look at that, even the test is called scope ID. So okay, in this case, for example, I set a host name here with a zone, and then I extract the URL. Maybe I should also try then to, here I need to, alright, yeah, this gets the host. I should also get the zone. Yep, it compiled. Test 1560, and now it won't succeed because it'll output another line. So it should show a failure and show the line that was added, but that line should look fine, and we should add it to the test and we'll be happy. And if that works, we know that we can extract the zone ID using the API like this. Boom, we got ETH0, or however we want to pronounce the name of the zone that I made up. And that of course is the name we set there, in there. I am streaming on Twitch. Yes, I am even fixing bugs on Twitch, or adding bugs. Hopefully I fix more than I add. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, yeah, oh, right. Another fun thing then is to, what if we set this zone ID? I think that is also one of the advantages with separating them, because now we can let we can offer the API to set the zone ID too. So if you just want to update the zone ID, you just set the new zone ID. So let's do that. Like this. We want to set the zone ID. We already have an IPv6 address set. We want to set it to to clown. That's an excellent zone ID. We just check it that it doesn't return 0. And we check the entire URL again then, because now it'll extract it with the new zone ID. Copy paste, copy paste. Build a new test. Run it. And it should fail because it left out success. That's the, and look, it didn't work. Ooh, because I forgot code. Maybe I need to add code too. It's odd how things work at times. But if I want to set zone, I need some kind of zone, store in zone ID. And let me see what, if not part, all right, if we set it to null, we can clear it. I should add a check for that as well, so you can actually just clear out the zone ID as well. And if you set it to something, it's like this. Zone, it's not a URL, it's a store. Okay, could work. New code, new tests. Will it work? Will it work? Will it work? Bam. Yes. So now we see that we had that URL. We updated the zone ID with clown instead. Very good, zone ID, and it worked. remove it from the to-do again, because here it comes. Then what do we need to do? Oh, yeah, I should also verify that we can clear it. Let's see, I have some fun code here. Should be zone ID. So if I do a URL with a funny IPv6 address and a zone ID, and I want to clear the zone ID, and it's then supposed to just strip it out like that. Perhaps it'll work. No. That was very uninformative. Wanted, got, okay, fake. So we could, when we set zone ID to 0 or to null, it didn't do anything. It is in this test, so let's set the breakpoint in that test. We run it. We parse that URL. That works. And oh, part 2 ID. That looks like part 2 ID. That looks like a code thing to fix as well. That could work. Remove the G there. Yes, it could, but it didn't. Update. If what? I'll just unknown part and if you can see these little red squares I get sometimes, they're trailing white space, and I have a key binding to remove all trailing white spaces from my editor or from my buffers. So okay, so it's not a bad part, it's just stupid. Update URL. So maybe it's just bad code then. I mean, the actual libcurl code. So we want to update zone ID, and we want to set null there. So I step into the code here. Set zone ID to 0 to null, actually. Switch what, and what is the zone ID? Store it in zone ID. Yes, free it, clear it, and we return. Okay, fun. And then we return, and then we're happy, and now we extract the URL from the handle again. So I'll just step in here and see what's wrong here then. The zone ID is 0 now. Zero. URL looks fine to me. I don't get it. Number. Ah, what is that? Boing 80 is apparently confused. Yeah, I guess that is because I added something, was it? Check parts. Okay, let's not add zone there. I added it on the ring. So now I have also verified that we can actually clear it, we can read it, we can set it, and it's added to the header file. It's not added to the documentation. Here, curl URL set host zone ID if the host name is a numeric IPv. If the host name is a numeric IPv6 address, it can this field can also be set without explaining much more. And I wanted to mention it in the get function also. Parts host might also be set, because when we parse an IPv6 address, it doesn't have to be there, but it can be there. If the host part is an IPv6 numeric address, ID will not be part of the extracted host, but is provided separately in nroff format on the man page. Excellent format. No, it's not. It's a pretty annoying format, but still. Okay. Availability added in curl upart zone was added in 765. What did I do? There. And I need to update this document, symbols inversions. And this is actually verified by a test, so if I wouldn't update this, we would get test failures anyway. And this list is sorted alphabetically, so let's sort it. So now it ended up there. So this symbol was added in that version, and I think we're pretty good. I don't think you can get other info with the zone ID on the hostname part. And even if you could, you cannot use the URL format. So it doesn't really help you to get it from the URL, because you would still need to get it out from the URL format and convert it to hostname format. So it doesn't really matter how we do it API-wise when resolving the hostname. And it's not about resolving hostname either, right? Because it's the same, it's this IP, so it's I don't remember. I need to get that checked. I mean the %25, but I also actually mean the zone ID part, because I think that can be. I'm reading the spec over here. Oh, sorry, hang on for a second. It wasn't really a coffee break, that was a lie. I actually got a delivery of stuff, and I'll show you the interesting thing I got. A big box. This is I actually got 2 of these. A lot of business cards. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with this, but now I have them. I can hand them out to anyone. It does have my phone number and my email address, and I'm most happy with my title on the card here. It's not very clear, but it says Curl Master. So that's fun. Yeah, now I can hand them out to the person, whenever that will be, when I meet someone to actually give a business card. Oh well, now I at least have them. I don't know. Oh, I can show you something else that I got yesterday. So I also have this little beauty that I got yesterday, and I'm plan to actually run curl on this any day now. That's the other separate little project I have that I'll talk about another time, but I'm going to make an effort to make curl run on an RTOS on this thing. This is it has a 1 megabyte flash on it, and it's a tiny ARM ST micro dev board. I'll get into details about that another time. Okay, so I was here, and the diff. I have an alias for my misspellings of Git, so it doesn't matter if I spell it GTI. Okay. So I have now I want to check the code. Look, scope ID, it scans for it and it removes it if it's in the code, if it's there. And we should stop doing that now. But, and this is wrong, it shouldn't just do this scope, because it's not necessarily a number. Yeah, so what is the scope ID going to be set to? This is wrong, right? Address scope. That's how you do it. if name to index. And so this is how you use it if it's not provided in the URL. You can provide it, so you can set it to pass it to this option instead. But I suppose this is the function I should actually use. Yeah, but I need to get a scope ID, right? And that's what I need to set. That's what I need to pass on. So this is not the right way of doing it. This option address scope, it's called. There it's set in the set scope ID. Is it ever used? It's used there. Override in scope that was set above. Okay, yeah. I should first make rel API zone ID master. Can be used with IPv6 numerical addresses. Updated tests 1560 to verify. I don't have working IPv6 myself, only local. Okay. Oh, right, that's bind low. No. Yeah, that's for binding. I don't want to bind. Ah, I'm totally confused now. I'll leave it like this for now. I'm going to push a pull request out of this, or make a pull request out of this. Over here, where am I here? Blah blah blah. Oh, by the way, let me just see what happened to this. Oh well, that failed as well. So yeah, let's get back to that. So that didn't work. The build failure looks like this. Probably exactly the same as before. Right, but it wasn't given. So it's a lie, or just a bad thing. Okay, let's see if there were others we could take a look at it to spice it up. To see, I had something else, right? Just want to see if this still AppWeir failure for this. AppWeir also tends to give me like this, just 1 out of 8. That's a flaky test. I'll ignore it. So this is my follow location thing, and that's I'm going to add that in the next merge window anyway. So it's sort of, I'll just leave it for now. Zone, so I'll get back to the configure thing. Yeah, that was weird when I did my moo test to figure out what it was doing. It didn't work. And it works apparently sometimes at least. Oh, it hasn't built anything there. FreeBSD build. Started just now. Well, there it compiles, so there it... Well, I can check the configure. Yeah, here it worked without having the option set. Crazy. Okay, it was more complicated. But then again, when isn't configure scripting complicated? Back to the configure script, and that was the branch called configure detect missing OpenSSL. What's wrong? In my other window here, I'm going back to just to take a look at the error here again, but it's not very helpful. There's no with SSL option given. I'm gonna see what that one does. Win SSL. It's completely crazy because it sets it to off first, and then later it checks if it's not no. And then in here again it uses off and yes. So what is it? And in my case, when I tried to check it out, it said, what did it say? Yes. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's leave that as well. I had some other bugs I wanted to get to. That's a definition not found. Oh, this is brand new, 1 hour ago. What? Looked like it may have been as a result of converting. Oops. still a call to in packages. Yeah, the the OS 400 version of curl, it has some extra special things. vset opt, there it is. And this is funny. Code style as well. Why does it look like this? Who writes code like this? It's supposed to be like that. Okay. That's obviously a bug in the code style script that doesn't find that and warn about it. I'm tempted to fix the script now, but oh right, maybe the script doesn't even run on this file, by the way, because it's in a separate thing. So okay, switch, a lot of string options, and then it does that, set opt, here it does a lot of things, and vset opt. But why? I mean, it could just as well set this. Okay. I'm going to suggest that to Mr. Reporter. I'll suggest this fix. It actually won't work. I need to extract the argument as well and then push that onward. So there needs to be a possibly like this. So long arg long, or maybe not arg, like that. Weird indent, but okay. It's just gonna be a proposal to the person here anyway. Yes, that seems to be accurate. How about changing that function call to something like this? Oh, and I did a nice little typo there. Easy L. It's not an easy L. Easy. And it looks like that, and it's a build problem. Boom. Comment. Boom. Okay. Yeah, we don't support HTTP2 or proxies, which is lame, but that's still true. I wanted to go back to this. I just mentioned this yesterday, I think. We don't support... Well, there's a time field in the struct that we return in this function, blah blah blah. That's always 0. That I mentioned yesterday. I figured it out. So I'm going to just leave that as 0 for now, and I'm going to document it for first. I'm going to revert this little change because I don't know if this is going to be used. So I proposed the diff, but it's in GitHub now, so I can just leave that. Here's always 0. It's never updated. And it's FTP. I'm trying to remember what the name is of the options that you use. Let's see, you call them FTP. Yeah, it's the wildcard match. It's a very rarely used functionality, and as I said before, I don't think I've ever... I think I have written some test case for it, but the test cases are really lacking as well. So okay, where does it provide the data to the user? Chunk begin function callback. Pointer to callback should match the prototype. Yes. The transfer info will point to struct. So why does it say this? How ugly. But okay, transfer info there, so it's there. So okay. Back to the documentation for that function. curl opt chunk begin function. Here it is. And this transfer info. Pretty lame documentation. It should really show the entire struct. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. There I am. The callback is a update copyright here. I'm going to just see how the callback is actually defined here. Yeah, it's a void pointer. Why isn't this a pointer to the struct? Stupid, but okay. I better not change that now, that people would be sad. The points will point to a struct curl file info with details about the file that is about to get transferred. Right, and now I copied that part, always 0. So yeah, I think that's good enough actually. Oops, wrong branch here. Get the new branch chunk call back no time. It's very important to get a really good branch name. I'm kidding. Yeah, these development branches that I do, they're basically just here for me being able to do pull request, and I'll kill them off afterwards anyway. So it's, I mean, I want them to at least be slightly related to what I'm doing so that I can actually find them and remember what they were about, but it's not super important what the name is, because they will be forgotten. So in a week or so we can just forget about this ever having existed, or even faster than a week. So I'm gonna do this. I'll commit and mention like this. Document the struct and time value. The time in the time field in the curl file info struct will always be 0. Fixes, let's call it fixes. It's not really fixing the problem, but 3829 is the issue. No code was ever implemented to actually parse the date to a time t. Convert is a better word. Convert to date string. And a pull request for that. Boom. And the browser, and just there. Make it a pull request. Yes. Junk. That's the documentation. And let's also mark it with libcurl API because it's libcurl API documentation. There. Okay, then we're working on that fix. That one is the annoying one. Okay, updated readme, or where is it? It's in the install file, yes. But I think Jay is on top of that. He can fix it. Clarify use of opt range. It is arranged put. This is an annoying situation, you know, trying to do uploads or puts with the range headers, because that's icky. It's not really defined how that it should work, but curl has some basic early hacky way of doing it. So if you're fine with curl's way to do it, it actually does something. But it's not specified in the RFC, so I'm not happy with it. But curl has done it like this since forever, so I'd rather not move it or change it or break it either, because I bet there are like 3 users out there that are using this feature. So I better help out describing what it does. So I could start out by looking for test cases that actually use this. How many test cases do we have with put? These ones. How many of these have a range header in them? A few. So possibly one of those. Test 1001 makes a digest with put and resumed upload and modified method. Yeah, so this browser curl has an approach to resumed uploads with put, even though it isn't encouraged nor nor specified in the RFC, has how existed for a long time, so we don't want to break it either. Test one. I can just see if few more that actually do resumed upload with the resume from end of already uploaded file. Yeah. Okay. I'll just looked up another. For example, test 1001 and 1041 verify the existing functionality. This is an annoying thing. Cannot negotiate TLS 1.3 connection with secure transport TLS backend. Yeah, and secure transport, the Mac OS native TLS, it supports TLS 1.3. I think I've even used it. Right now, I think my Mac is offline. It's in my daughter's room over there, but it's not connected, so I can't really check it out right now. This happens when the function. Alright, I don't think this is TLS 1.3 specific. Nick is our resident Mac OS and secure transport guy, so I'm listening to him. Okay, then going further down, yeah, let's check out this. We have a fun auto test, or well, you know, we have CI builds that build on every commit and pull request, and we have auto builds. And let me show you the auto builds. I tend to forget them at times, but they look like this. They're on the website, so you can see them here in the /dev/builds HTML, and they are basically just volunteers running tests non-stop. Well, not non-stop, but a few times a day, and submitting the results. I run a bunch of them on my machine here, so actually sometimes while I'm developing it does this, and it rarely interferes, but okay. Oh, I clicked on something. All. So it shows you here. Here's the time when it ran. Here's the description of the annoying that I can't click on it. Okay, and here's the description, who's running it, and just some letters here for options, which is options that are enabled for that particular build and test. And then of course it's marked red when there are test failures. So here we can see the Win32 target, blah blah blah, it has 10 failures, and the Solaris 10 has 1,165 successful tests, and so on, so on, so on. And one of the occurring failures is the one that I'm building here. Look at that. Here's a boring SSL build. Built this night. And here it is. Look at this lovely... this is Valgrind finding an error, invalid read of size 8. And that's a really bad thing, right? So who's to blame for this? Is it a bug in curl? Is it a bug somewhere else? Is it a security issue? It is potentially a security issue, I would guess. I haven't really investigated it properly, but this bug is triggered only on my build when I run with boring SSL, and I talked to the boring SSL people, well, to my contact, to the excellent guy called David Benjamin, and he submitted that as a bug to glibc in the end, because these lines up here, they are in glibc. So here's the bug. I just posted it here because we get that, so I just wanted to make it obvious to everyone that we have this bug. This is the result of it. Look what a lovely stack trace, invalid, free, blah blah blah, awesome. And David then submitted this bug in turn to glibc about this problem, so we can actually follow up in glibc what happens to this bug April 26, I'm looking into this. Yep. So, I guess that's another word for saying not a lot has happened. And this is pretty annoying. I know that David told me that they're not particularly interested in implementing a workaround in boring for this problem, because this is a glibc problem. So right now the bug will remain and the crash will remain in my auto build like this, blah blah blah. I run it every day, I think, yeah, every night. So we can see this crash every night repeat itself. But I will leave the issue, the bug report here in Git on GitHub to remind us that this is the case. It's not really our bug, but it hurts our builds. So it makes it really annoying to run the builds for boring SSL. What's interesting is that this is yeah, but it's already debugged basically. That's the fun part here, that David already figured out this description here. glibc includes this change, which causes libfreeRes to free some memory from libdl. One of the functions it calls is dll error main free res, which frees the current thread's DLL error state. This does not work right if it was never run. And apparently I get this on my machine because I have glibc 2.28, and presumably not the entire world does that. And I don't think any of the CI machines, for example, use it, because this is a fairly new version. I run Debian Unstable on my machine here, so it's a pretty new version of glibc. So I get the pleasure of suffering from this bug. Really fun. So if you upgrade to glibc as well, you too can have fun with this bug. Or not. He also created a fine sample program here. Here, attachment, boom. So if I open that with where do I get that? There it is. Let me switch over. So this Emacs buffer here, here's a very detailed description of the bug, and here's a little program reproducing the bug. So I would imagine that if I was a glibc programmer, I would run this little program until it crashes, and then I would inspect the crash, address the crash, and fix it and release an update. But April 26, yeah, that was, when was that? That was last Friday. So yeah, that's a week ago. When they said they would look into it. So whatever looking into it means, it's not super fast, at least. I'm getting messages from my daughter. Okay, so that's the glibc bug. I'm gonna just leave it and hope that something will happen. Here's the offending commit. committed in June 2018, so it's not, I mean, it's not spanking new, it's commit diff. It's a pretty big one. Yeah, they have a funny code style, I'd say. A lot of these ugly open-ended macros like this. Ooh. But okay, it's not my project. I'll leave that to the glibc coders. So I have the bug remaining here. That was the glibc bug. There's a gzip encoding problem, and this glibc, sorry, I'm saying glibc too often. This gzip one is being handled by Jay in a pull request that is working on. I think it's this one. Which is also, I mean, yeah, if you concatenate, if we could blame a lot of annoying things in the web on browsers, and this is another case of annoyance. So it turns out, of course, that browsers are very lenient in what they accept, of course, that come flying over the network. And if you then concatenate a few, just one gzip stream and then another null stream and then a third stream after that, it turns out that that's perfectly fine for browsers. The null stream in between is just ignored. But we have we used to be more lenient, and we added more, became more strict, and now it comes back to bite us. And this is Jay's approach now to make it slightly more lenient again, to to allow 23 unknown bytes after stream. I love it, but yeah, but he's on top of that, so I don't need to get into that right now. Other bugs. So and then here's another ugly bug. Here's you know, we have a retry option to curl that says if there's a transient error, try again later, and there's another option that says, so you can sort of specify how to retry it, how long to wait, and so for the command line tool. And that's fine, but then someone here tells me that there's a HTTP status called 429, and it includes a header, or it's supposed to include a header at least, that says retry after. So it's the server can basically tell us it doesn't work now, but try again in 49 seconds. And it turns out, of course, that when I implemented retry, I had no consideration about any response header like that, so it doesn't support it. And it really should. But there's always a but. Since I'm working now pretty hard on this little thing here, my parallel transfers branch, I'm rewriting a lot of the curl tool logic. Look at that size of this patch. I'm rewriting a lot of the cool tool logic anyway, so I don't want to add more tool logic because I want to rewrite it like this anyway. And for this, I haven't even made the retry thing to work yet. So yeah, I leave the 429 status code bug. Maybe I'll just mention that that's 3804. So maybe if I can do this. I want to address this issue after 3804. has gone in just to save me from having to do double work. Hello! Well, we're at 2 hours, so I'm going to call it a day really soon. Just gonna continue down and see what more bugs. Sometimes I forget to check the bugs that sort of trickle down because I focus on the most recent ones. I used then to download file in my project. The function may return when the file not downloaded yet. And now I have a phone call. Hang on a minute. Let's call it a coffee break. Okay, that was my secret message that I need to run off. So yeah, but I was pretty much done for today anyway, so I think it's fine. I'm going to take a look at this. Show us the response header, and I'm going to no response closing. I hate it when people just disappear in the middle of the bug report. Boom. And then nothing for 2 weeks. And if you file a bug and then vanish in the middle and don't come back for 2 weeks, then it's not really worth keeping that alive and going. And so I have more problems. Yeah. What was this? Also a really difficult bug report. Yeah, they had some HTTP2 bug. So they upgraded curl from something to and the bug started to appear in 762.0 because 762.0 was the first one we automatically enabled HTTP2 in. So it's possible that we have a bug in HTTP2 and they got it when they upgraded. But there are no details here, so it's hard to tell. That's why we have this needs info or update, and with that set for a long enough time, I'm going to close it later if they don't provide information, because we can't do anything without the added information. It just sits there waiting. But okay, I'm done for today. I will be back next week again with some fun stream. I bet I'll get some more bugs and have some more work, and I'll also get working on my job on this tiny thing. And I have a new little side project called Tiny Curl that I will mention, because I'm going to do a little separate release with the Tiny Curl release very soon for tiny devices. But more about that in another stream. So I'm off for now, and see you later.